Hello again, Dwayne Brummett here with Ali Albarigo, SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Ali, good morning, and welcome to our guest, Mr. John Geysten, as well. So good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
How's it going, man? Good to see you in person. I haven't seen you in a while, John.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I thought you were talking with Dwayne. I'm like,
no, I see him every Wednesday. We see each other all the time.
Well, it has been a while, but it's exciting, right?
It totally is. I'm watching you, and I don't know if you remember. And by the way, Will, let me quickly introduce you. So, I got a lot of people. I talked about how we met, and I posted it about promoting our show today. And I said, we met on the set of a movie audition that we went to, and we auditioned for the film, had dinner that night, hung out. You and I gravitated towards each other, just chatted. We ended up filming, getting parts in the movie, shooting the film for like 3 weeks on location, had the time of our lives, you and I, the most fun ever. You saved my life once, so that's a cool thing. When we were shooting a scene, and Dwayne, I'm driving in a limousine. Like you see always in the movies, I'm hanging out, the doors open. I'm shooting a machine gun. John's inside, you can't see him. He's got me. I'm strapped into like a belt, and he's got a rope or a chain, and he's holding on to me. And the door, the inside of the door falls off, so I like slip, and he yanks me back in the car, saves my life, because we were driving like 35 miles an hour, and they're for effect, they're swerving the vehicle back and forth, so the door's smashing into my ribs. I had like bruised ribs anyway, and we're like, holy crap. So he was there for me on that. And then later on, we ended up filming another movie together for 2 weeks in Kentucky or Cleveland, Ohio, or it was like in the backwoods, like filming, and we just had a blast, like hanging out, 3 of us in a hotel room, and kind of like a college dorm room. It was just so much fun, and we've been buddies for, that goes back 97, I think it was 98.
97, I think was the audition. Yeah,
the cutoff, right? The movie, The Cutoff, and then. But yeah, we know each other and then we filmed a short film that I produced and wrote, and he flew out and he was in the film, and it was called Dreamweaver. It was an internet release, so we hung out for that as well. And man, it was a great time. And I've gone out and trained with him at his school, and he runs like a super high level martial arts school. Always has been top notch Kempo practitioner, and now a personal student of Hoist Gracie. And runs multinational, like multi-state schools, because he just opened up a school in Florida. So he's running 2 schools in Illinois, right by you, Dwayne, and one in Florida.
You're missing all the snow, John.
Yeah, it's what you wake up with those days that you made good decisions, and today was one of those.
Yeah. However, it's been cold. Has it been cold by you in Florida?
It has been.
My house, we have a house in Pompano. My mom lives there at the house, and it literally, she has her heat on. It was like 38 degrees at one night in Florida. My mom was freezing.
Yeah, there was 3 or 4 nights where it got down pretty low like that. And then, but then it was weird because I'd like go into, as you know, we're working on a school. I'd go in there like it's 6:30 in the morning, and I'm in a hoodie. And then some days I forgot to put a shirt on. So then I'm like, I got to run home to get a T-shirt because now it's in the 60s and I'm sweating. But when I got up, it's 38.
Right. But isn't it funny to see Floridians? Like my mom, we visited her in November. She's like, okay, I got you covered. I made the house really cool because I know you don't like it too hot. I lowered it down to 77 degrees on the AC. I'm like, that's like summertime for us. Like our air conditioner is at 61, 62 in our house. we're sitting on the couch sweating, watching TV. My mom's like, okay, at night you could put it down to 73, maybe. I'm like, okay, thanks, Mom. It's like she got that Florida blood. You'll get that eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. So Dwayne, do you want to start off with some questions? I mean, I'd love to pick your brain on the school and the startup and things like that, and whatever, Dwayne, you want to talk about. We're ready to go.
I do have a real important question to start off with, though, is you've known Ali for this long.
Here we go. Were you?
Why?
Oh, I thought you were going to say, were you invited to his wedding?
No, I was going to get there, but you stole my thunder on that. So,
all right.
I'm going to go with my lighting. Time all the time, huh?
Say that again.
You guys are giving each other a hard time all the time.
He always does it. Like, but were you invited to his wedding? Because Dwayne's like,
because I wasn't invited, but I know why. At least I know the excuse.
Wedding. I had 30 people. I didn't want to bother my friends from out of the state.
So that was a shot at you.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I figured there was a backstory to it.
Yeah.
So Dwayne, another thing is I was at John's wedding when he eloped in Las Vegas at the Super Show. And how long ago? 25 years or so?
That'll be 20 years in May 4th. Yeah.
Crazy. So, I mean, we went out to dinner. I was the first person to see them as a married couple. My ex-wife at the time, Janelle, who John knew, and she's still my best friend. And yeah, we were there, hung out with you. We had a great weekend, and that was when the Super Show had just started. I think it was year 2, maybe. You were a speaker. I was a speaker. It was just amazing. Just to go back in our history, it's quite.
Yeah. I was telling someone this story the other day. I was working a booth. I was consulting for United Professionals then.
Yeah.
And I was working a booth, and Amy and I weren't planning on getting married at all. We just like, nah, we'll just do the Goldie Hawn, Kurt Russell thing. Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I was doing a lot of seminars. Then I had that video series with Century, and I was doing a lot of that. And I'm just like, well, man, I don't want to be. This is cool, but I'm ready to have a family. And
yeah.
Said, hey, and we always talk about how non-romantic it was. Like I said, hey, why don't you come out into Vegas and let's spend the weekend, blah, blah, blah. And bring a, dress or something. And let's talk about maybe getting married when you're here.
Oh, okay.
And, so anyway, I worked a booth, and I never told anybody because I wasn't even sure we were doing it.
Yeah.
And because we both, and just between us, like we never thought for sure if we wanted to do that.
Right.
And so I remember going up to the booth, and I said, hey, at about 4:00 today, I have to leave. Is that okay? And they're like, yeah. And then I just went upstairs. I think I taught a seminar like at 2.
Yeah.
And I went back to the booth, talked to some people, and then literally went to my room, changed, got picked up in the limo. They took us to the city hall. We did all our paperwork, and then they took us to chapel. Come back. You're the first person I run into.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, we just got married.
That's great.
They're like, what? And I go, yeah. He goes, well, I'm taking you to dinner. So that's, I told somebody the other day, like, it's not like a really romantic story, but
It was, but that's pretty romantic. I like it.
Well, yeah, it's very unique though too. So you're coming up on your 20th.
20th, May 4th. Yes.
Yeah. So on my 20th is today.
Wow! Congratulations!
Well, congratulations! Awesome. Yeah,
that's great. I didn't know that. And
we're running parallel all this time.
You're pretty close. Yeah. But now you moved, so you're you're on the east side now.
So I remember years ago you had opened up a school, and I was opening up a school simultaneously, and I tried to find the notes, but we were going back and forth, and we wrote like almost like a list of all the things that people don't think of that to do. Yeah. And we're going like, oh yeah, we didn't think, you got to get the phone, you got to get the internet, you got to make sure that you do this and that, permits. And we had like a list of 100, and I'm going to try to find that, but like 100 things to do to open up a school. And we were in live doing it. So we were like, oh yeah, that's something that I ran across today. And you're like, oh yeah, I had that problem last week. And we wrote them all out. But that was pretty interesting at how we went through that at the same time and wrote that stuff. So I'm going to try to find it. Maybe I could make a PDF and post it for everyone.
There's a lot of, as you know, when you're opening, and especially, there's just always a lot of little details. But the challenge that I had is here I am in Florida.
Right.
I don't know, like setting up a corporation in Florida is totally different.
Totally different.
From Illinois.
Yeah.
Everything I ever did was Illinois. And,
yeah.
And
I did it too. And I had a school down there in Boynton Beach. And by the way, don't forget, you have to always renew your corporation every year. I didn't know that. So in 2 years, we're like, I didn't renew it. And the corporation went dead and I got a fine. And so like, that's not in New York. It's just once you open it up, it's open forever until you close it.
Until you request it to be closed.
Right, exactly.
Same way in Illinois, I think.
Yeah, and it's funny that the landlords in Florida, I mean, like if our rent was late one day because of the mail, the guy was, putting on sending us out a notice of eviction. He was like a terrible landlord. I was unbelievable to me. Like he was, always charging interest rates, raising the prices, and they had all these clauses that you could do almost everything that they wanted to do. It was very landlord friendly in Florida.
Yeah.
So tell us about what made you want to open up a third school. Now you're in Florida. Did you want to transition to warmer weather and that was kind of your motivation, or what happened? Like what made it happen?
I think it, as you know me, I'm fully transparent. I'm that guy that will tell you the pains, the challenges, as much as I will talk about any victory or, positivity of it.
Right,
too.
right.
Really, it was our plan in like 3 to 4 years to do that. And obviously there was a mind shift that I took that I was ready to take a couple years ago. But with the Florida thing, it really came down to my daughter, who was never going to go to college, and my son did the same thing. So they're 1 year apart.
Right.
Seniors. Neither one of them, they swore college off, like they never wanted to do it. So then Jet came. My son came to me, and he ended up at Carbondale this year. And then my daughter, who was always going to take over the school. That's all she said she was ever.
Right. Right.
Now she's like, hey, I don't know if I want to do that. I want to go to college. And so that's good. And then she picked a college down here. And to be honest with you, it was just a matter of like just looking at things. That was probably the major thing on making it happen now, because obviously the 12-month residency.
Yeah.
Her college would literally be $35,000 less a year by being in Florida as a resident than it would be in Illinois.
Wow.
So, and then there was other circumstances like, hey, we've gotten it to the point where I'm pretty much, I go in and I teach because I want to teach.
Right.
And I do my meetings with the staff in the mornings I'm there. And then 2 days a week. And then 2 days a week I'm there to do the physical training with them. And really that's more of training.
Right.
than it is work, like lessons or anything. So, I think it was, I had already kind of that mindset and shift started to take place a couple years ago.
Okay.
That's kind of what made the move now. It was kind of literally we made the decision in seven weeks after my daughter told me that we had signed a lease down here. And we've been coming, as you know, Mike Albenzi, who also at the same time, I've been coming down here doing seminars with him since 97, 98.
Yeah.
For his school. And then Steve Del Castello's here. And there's a couple other people that I had always come down here and done seminars for. And then we were part of the mass thing for our summer camp with Dwayne Spires. So we were coming down here like 3-4 times a year.
Okay.
For the last couple years. And then I've been coming down here since 97. So this was an area we always liked. And, let's do it.
That's awesome. Any thoughts, Dwayne?
Yeah, I just wish that I would have made that decision too, I guess,
I tell you, well, you worked for like a year in Florida, right? Didn't you live there prior? Like before we worked together with Member Solutions, weren't you working down in Florida? You lived there for a little while?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, with United Professionals, actually in 2001 to 2002 on the Coral Springs. So
right.
Coral Springs, Boca, Deerfield. I think our apartment was actually Deerfield Beach.
Well, that's where I live. I'm in my house down there is in Pompano, and then Deerfield is literally 15 minutes down the road. But my school was in Boynton, which is a nice area, and Chung Park has a school up there as well.
Yeah, I think he's got multiple schools in that area.
Yeah, and it was tough running the school. Well, my goal was, hey, listen, if I had a guy and the guy approached me, put up all the money until the money ran out and he didn't want to put up any more. And then he wanted to rely on me and I refused to do it. And then he refused to do some of the work. He was really more like, hey, I'd rather spend time talking on Facebook about why you should join my school than going out and meeting people and doing the legwork. So it was just hard because I'm that kind of guy who wants to get in and do it all. But it was tough because if I'm not there, what could you do? You just got to rely on trying to motivate the person who's in charge. But now that you're there, you're running everything. I see you're doing trial classes. You had a picture of a kid already in the class and you're signing people up already and so on.
Yeah, we're not even really officially open. I think with just across the country right now, there's so many delays on the shipments and everything. Right. And then too, we've had a couple snags with construction time because we signed the lease. We looked at I think we physically looked at about 13 locations. There was one prior to this that we thought we were going to sign for.
Yeah,
they did the letter of intent. They accepted it. We did the terms. everything. And then all of a sudden communication failed. And that was like maybe the week before Thanksgiving. And then nothing happened. So then I started looking for a backup because I'm like, something's got to be going on.
Yeah.
Let's get a backup plan because I just want to get going.
Yeah.
And we ran across the one that we're in now. And I just went the other one, I had a leasing agent. This one I went ahead and went in and negotiated myself. And the one that we ended up in. But by the time we negotiated, all the terms, taking your time to make sure you negotiate the proper terms and everything, did the demographic studies and everything, obviously, of course, first, then negotiate the terms. By the time we did that, we picked up the key. By the time we got everything signed with the landlord's team, their legal team, we got the key Tuesday at 5 p.m., the Tuesday before Christmas Eve on Friday. So then, like, everything sat still because nobody was coming out to work till the first of the year. So really most of everything, with 90% of what we have done has literally been January 2nd to date.
Wow. That's terrific, man. That's amazing. And I see the photos and the videos, and it's really coming together. Yeah. So that's awesome.
You brought up the demographics. What were you looking for with regards to demographics?
Yeah, because it was like this location that we did, for example. I mean, there's a certain family demographics. We wanted to make sure that we were getting neighborhoods, that we were buying neighborhoods. We looked at how many grade schools in the area, the neighborhoods, which one, income, which households had children. And it was a really fine line because there literally was right by the school to what I want to say, let's say, I think in this case it would have been east and southeast of that. The demographics didn't fit for us whatsoever. And then it almost ruled out this location. And actually I ended up calling a realtor who is trying to help us also find a house. And I said, let me ask you this. What, if this location, is that a fine line? And, because I know that there's certain communities, right? Like there's a street that literally could be a wall. Like this community will not drive past this location. Yeah. And I go, am I going to appeal to, West Chase, Keystone, Odessa, if I'm in this location, or should I be on the other side of Sheldon?
Right.
And she's like, no. And she goes, actually, they're going to be completing this other drive, which is going to open up that area even to you more.
Wow.
And so she gave me a lot of good advice. So that was, one of the things, because I was a little just concerned because the demographics, like closest to the academy, literally to the east and south of us, so kind of behind us, was not the demographics that were favorable for that to be a successful business.
That's amazing. I once had a location where my friend said, don't go where you're going to go. And I'm like, why? It's a perfect area. He said, because it was like a south of the highway, and then the north of the highway and then it was a 4-lane highway in between with like probably 3 exits before you could turn around. So if someone missed the exit, they had to go 3 exits down the road to turn around and then drive all the way back. It was a nightmare. So I did not draw at all from that north side. Like it was almost like they're like, no, we won't even cross that divide. So that's an interesting thing. Like, I'm glad you looked at that because that could make or break you right there.
No, absolutely. And, think about it like, the younger version of all three of us probably have done this. You see a building, you're like, oh, that would be so cool. I could put in 2 floors.
Right.
Look at that's cool. It's got an overhead door. I can open that up for training, and we could have the air. We looked at it as what would be a cool training facility.
Right.
Opposed to what will give us the opportunity to hit more families and create a business model that will allow our instructors to have careers.
Right.
And that's, so just looking at it different, I think it's an evolution probably all three of us have made, right? But there's still school owners that just want to, oh, that's a cool building.
Yeah. Well, however, I bought a building like that, which is like my school now where I'm at is literally in a residential neighborhood. I think Dwayne went to it. I took him to it, but if you drive down the block, there's nothing but residential houses and then a few commercial apartments and buildings. So no walk-through traffic, no drive-by traffic. It's literally in the woods, backwoods. However, I drive everything through marketing, but I don't have that barrier. Like it's open to the whole community.
Right.
I just got to get people to know where I'm at. But you're right though. Like you could have a wall where literally people won't cross over. Or my good buddy Adam Lux has that in Michigan, where he always says to me, "No, that's on that side of the whatever it is highway. People won't travel to my end of the road from that side." And I'm just astonished by that. But it's how it works.
Yeah, and I think it's that, that's the biggest thing I think with with the experience of running academies for, going to the 40th year, of teaching now, and since about at the time I met you, it was, I'd only went full time in 96. I taught part time and worked during the day and taught part time from 82 to 96.
Right. Yeah.
So, a lot of those that you just evolve. You just evolve over time. And
and there was a gentleman that I worked with, and he no longer is in operation, but he, which says something about my coaching, doesn't it? Yeah, he had a location. And where he was at was fine, but there was another location that was a storefront. Had a grocery store next to it, double the size. And I said, look, you can't afford this. Like just because it's right on the beaten path and it's right where you want it.
Right.
I can just assure you that yes, drive-by traffic is not going to be what you think it's going to be.
Right.
And he didn't last, but maybe a year and a half in that location, and he literally closed the doors and no longer teaches martial arts anymore. And you're right, where we get our egos get in the way, where we think, oh, this is going to be cool for X, Y, or Z or whatever, as opposed to what's most beneficial for the business.
The vision, right? That imaginary vision of what you want. Yeah.
Well, look, we are the only full-time martial arts school in our community. We are the only school that is off the beaten path. I'm in an industrial park.
And you are behind. Like when I went to your school, you're kind of tucked away.
But it's marketing and it's word of mouth, and it's also setting up, even on the phone script before you hang up, right? Where you say, so where we're located, and they go, yes. Then we're located behind Homestar Bank off of North Street in Bradley. Oh, you're not the one. No, that's not us.
Yeah.
And now we can go. I'll text you the location, that type of thing, which is common practice now for us anyhow, But it's just interesting that some of us, unfortunately, and even us, ourselves, but we got into those situations where we did let our egos get bigger. Before we moved to the location that we're at now, we had a 1,500 square foot facility, and we blew it out in 2 years, and we needed a bigger place. Well, then, Allie, the place that I'm at now.
Yeah.
It's 4,700 square foot. I've got two floors. And once COVID hit, it really made me to think, okay, do I really need 2 floors? Because we weren't really operating both floors at the same time at 100% capacity. And so what I did over this last Christmas break was I remodeled the whole front room. It's all one big floor, gained another 1,100 square foot of floor space, meaning, training floor space in my front room. And by the end of this month, that lease for that back room will be done. And so my overhead's going to be cut in half this year.
Nice.
So John, do you have any, like, speaking of what Dwayne had just said, do you have any rules of thumb, like, to share with the listeners of like what number one, opening up a secondary location? I think you and I have had conversations. You went from 1 to 2. We had a conversation, and I'm like, listen, you either can do it or can't do it. These are the pros, these are the cons, and there are always pros and cons to both. But now you're up to 3 locations. So what advice do you give to people first before they open their second location? And, what should they prepare to mentally do that or not? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I like how you hit on the mentally, because for me, it was a long, it was a different route for me. And I remember, like, I would talk to people, and, if you talk to like certain consultants in our industry, they will almost say, you need to have multiple locations. You're still working your location. You don't know what you're doing. Right. And I remember one time I just had to tell a consultant, like, hey, listen, I was making 6 figures in 96.
Right.
And I walked away from that because this was my passion. And So I say that to say that for me, running the one school and doing what I wanted to do for a living was why I was hands-on. It wasn't that I had to be, but definitely when I made that decision, I realized there was weaknesses that I had in doing that, and I think, and I say that because if the same information that made me shift was information that maybe 4 or 5 different people had told me,
Right.
and, even yourself would have told me, but I mentally wasn't there yet because I still wanted to run the one location for me. And that's when people say all the time, we ran mega. I mean, we did. I mean, it was never my academy when it was just the one location, never was less than 450 people. It peaked one time at 725 with a fitness thing in it, group with it. So, but I just had to be ready for that. So I think that is a mental, and I heard a guy once say, your numbers are your truth.
Right.
And when I really reflected on that, it wasn't a numbers as in like finances. It was what our truth. There might be a school owner that just wants to do one location.
Right.
There might be someone who loves to teach but is not ready to give up. They also love their career.
Right.
They want to be bivocational.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be full time. So I think that or there's ones that are working that want to go. And I think so. I think there's levels. And I mean, I've never really thought this out, so I'll just kind of say it.
Yeah.
I think you're either going to have to become self-employed.
Right.
And when you're self-employed, what is it that you're trying to achieve? Do I want 200 students and just do martial arts because I love to teach and I want to be active? Or do I want to become that and eventually train staff?
Right.
And because there's the next level. Once I start training staff, then things got to be different. But when you train staff for a multiple location and take on maybe that CEO role now, that's a completely different game.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest change for me was to say, okay, and Hanji Dave Kovar was the one, like just in a friendly conversation in a hallway, because I was ready to hear it.
Right.
With his hand on my shoulder, said to me, how many hours do you still teach? And I said, like 18. He goes, on a personal friendship level, I want to challenge you to teach 9, and took the other 9 and train your staff to become you.
Right.
So I still taught 18. I just shifted what I was teaching. So I think that was the big shift. And, so I think it's, one is I want to say that I think some school owners, some consultants will almost shame school owners that if you're in your school and you're teaching, you don't know business. No, he knows his heart. Get out of here and listen to your heart. So you can't judge that. And I had that debate with two high level guys that I respected. Yeah. I debated, like, I was making more money than you in 96. So don't tell me I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly.
But I wanted to do that. So I think that's one is you got to know what you want to do. Your numbers is your truth. My truth was one location. I wanted to be hands-on. I wanted to do what I do. And now it is, I think the multiple locations, but there was a mind shift that had to happen to that.
Oh, definitely.
And I've done it and failed.
Yeah.
Because I did not take the time to make it scalable. I could write all the phone scripts and I could do all that, but I never made a shift to make it where I taught you repetitively how to do it. Yeah.
You told me a story once, and I always use this story, so I steal it from you, but I give you credit for it, is that you were talking with Hoist Gracie, and Hoist said to you, hey, John, how much do you practice the choke? Something like that. And he said, how much do you teach it? And when the person doesn't get it, do you go over it and over it? And you said, yeah, until they get it right. And then I keep going over it more and more and more. And then he turned to you and said, well, why don't you do that with your staff?
Yes.
Something like that. Right. And
absolutely.
And that was like big for me because, I run multiple schools, 6 in my area and 4 out of the country. I kind of got out of that thing only because I just wanted to cut back. Like I was at a point I'm 57. Yesterday was my birthday. And I was like, I'm happy where I am now. Like I don't need to have the 3 or 4 locations. Everyone's always asking me to open up another one. I'm like, hell no, I just closed my headquarters school so I could have one, just because that's where I'm at. Like I'd have no desire to be anywhere else.
Well, you combined them. You didn't.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And some people wrote, some of my haters were so happy, like, you closed your school. Good for you. You finally got closed down. I'm like, no, I moved all the students to the one location. That's all, but anyway, so what are your thoughts with that? Like I've trained staff, and you talk to your blue in the face sometimes. And it's even like with students, Johnny, turn your hand this way and throw the punch this way. And then they look at you, yes, sir. And then you turn around and they're doing it exactly the way you told them not to. So what are some things you could teach people about staffing, like repetitive training, but there's got to be something more to it to get it to stick, right? So what have you learned about that?
Yeah, I really, from that story that I shared with you, is when I just start thinking, okay, this is no different than a technique.
Yeah.
And how many times do we teach a front kick?
Right. Forever.
And we don't get mad at the yellow belt because they're not doing the front kick right, after 6 months.
Right.
From white belt to now yellow belt, 6 months didn't make you any better. Now you're just figuring out how not to fall down as much.
Right.
But then all of a sudden we show the phone script 1 or 2 times. We're like, what part don't you understand?
Right. And you walk away and you're like not doing your job.
Yeah. But if you think about it in the sense that, I know the front kick, but does it mean I can pad up and score with the front kick in sparring?
Right.
Well, when someone calls you, that's an interactive exchange. Maybe they take you off script. Maybe it's a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
You don't know how to adjust to that.
Yeah.
So, it really made me like, okay, we just got to continue doing this. And I think there's staff members that, sometimes too, when you say, hey, we're going to do this again, oh man, I got that down. Well, do we have room for 1% improvement?
Right.
So I might have it down, but can you do it in your sleep, and can you do it 100% every time?
Right.
And obviously I think it's just that training, and then knowing your stats, in a sense, not to always know your numbers, but we know, like with us, we know that our program directors are usually, you can go by the general rule of the industry, the 80-20, but we know that our program directors are usually at 86% enrollment conversion.
Okay.
So when it gets to 80, we know that we're slipping a little. So let's fine tune it. Let's go over. So we'll just tell me what you do at this stage. Mm-hmm. And the other day I just sat with a guy who's doing great. I mean, he signed up 25 people in the Illinois school, and then 10 in the Rochester small town community of school. So we did 35 enrollments in a month. Right. But he said something to me that this and this, and I go, listen, that is good, but there's something I can do to help you tweak that.
Right.
It's going to make an improvement, because there was one person that he lost. He didn't understand why. And I'm not saying that phrase did it. So even then it's just okay, let's tweak that, because maybe what was the difference between someone who's winning in a tournament and someone that's like a superstar that nobody can touch?
Right.
It's that 1% difference.
Yeah, that's funny. When I tell my tournament kids or team people, and I say, you're winning and you're doing great, but when you lose sometimes, don't be upset. The only way you're going to win all the time is by being so far better and outstanding, and that takes a lot of practice. So right now, you're kind of on the cusp of winning and losing, but when you're outstanding, there's no denying how good you are, right? Yeah. And I guess it's the same thing with a team, right? You got to have a team that's fully on board, and how do you instill in people the desire to want to be better? Like, have you ever had a staff member? Like, I've had people that I go, hey, and before I even hired them, I had a bunch of people, and I wouldn't hire them, right? I would say, if I gave you a book to study at home on how to become better at your job, would you do it? And they said, oh, no, only at work. I would read it at work when I'm getting paid, but not at home. And I would never hire them because they had no desire to be better. How do you instill that? How do you make people want to, you know what I mean? Be better at what they do?
I don't know if you can. I just told this story too last week, because obviously we're in this new, so there's these conversations pop up in this initial phasing. But a pastor at a church I was going to called me and a buddy of mine and asked us to go to lunch. And I'm thinking, what do they want? They're going to ask for donation. They're going to ask.
Right.
But, I respect him enough to go. And when we got there, it completely wasn't. What he was doing was asking us how we hire people. And because he was getting ready to hire, and he had hired some people that didn't work out.
Yeah.
And in that process, I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So here he was going, and he goes, and I got two of you that are in different industries, you being private, independently, private, small business, privately owned. And then my buddy was GM for two large car dealerships, and that he didn't own, but owned by a guy who owns 10 of them. So, but it was interesting because he actually gave me, the pastor gave me this information. He was like, there's a church, it's a mega church up in Chicago. And he goes, I was talking to him, and he says, I don't interview him. I interview him, I meet them, and then there's 3 other people that interview him. They do an